Imagine you're in a room, a quiet, windowless room, where every wall is lined with doors, and someone calmly tells you that you are free. You can go wherever you want, you can choose any door, because this is the space of freedom. But there's something they don't tell you. Behind most of those doors is the same hallway, with the same lights, the same directions, the same path, which someone designed long before you even entered the room. And while you feel like you're making your own choices, in reality, every move you make is watched, every click is measured, every uncertainty is stored somewhere in a system that remains invisible to you. You think you chose, but someone else drew the map for you. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of it all, that this isn't some far-off science fiction story, not a scene from a dystopian movie, but the reality of everyday browsing, the world where we spend hours every day, almost never asking ourselves what's really happening on the other side of the screen. There was a time, somewhere in the late 90s and early 2000s, when the internet promised people something entirely different. A new era, a freer world. The feeling that knowledge would no longer be in the hands of a privileged few, but would become accessible to everyone through a single screen. Back then, many truly believed that the internet would be an open space where anyone could speak, where thoughts could move freely, and where the world would finally become more democratic because information no longer existed behind closed doors. And the truth is, those people weren't naive. They weren't wrong about the dream, but they were wrong about who would actually build this system. Because the internet wasn't shaped by those who wanted to build freedom. It was shaped by those who realized very early on that human attention is one of history's most valuable resources. That if you can keep a person's eyes glued to a screen long enough, you can make a profit from it. Not in a metaphorical way, not in a philosophical way, but very concretely, measurably, and in incredible amounts of money. Because do you know what the biggest tech companies are actually selling today? Not apps, not social experiences, not free platforms, but human attention, yours, mine. Every single minute you spend on a social media site, every moment you stop at a video, when you reopen an app, when you mindlessly scroll late at night in front of a glowing screen in the dark, while you think you're just relaxing a bit. The digital world is not a neutral space. Every move you make creates data. Every search you do, every uncertain sentence you type, every image you look at for an extra second. It's all saved, analyzed, and connected into a digital profile. This profile slowly starts to know your habits better than the people you meet every day. And perhaps the strangest thing about all of this is that most people still use the internet as if they were the customer. But the reality is much more uncomfortable than that. Because when a service seems free, very often it means that you are not the customer, but the product. Just think about how all of this works in real life. You wake up in the morning, still half asleep, the room is quiet, some soft city noises drift in from the street, and before your first real thought even forms, your hand automatically reaches for your phone. An app opens, and the content that immediately appears in front of you knows, almost eerily, exactly how to keep you there. It knows what grabs your attention. It knows what makes you stop scrolling. It knows which video you'll watch all the way through, even if you only open the app for a minute. And this isn't by chance. It's not luck, and it's not some kind of digital magic. It's a system that has been watching you for a very long time. An algorithm that built a digital copy of your personality from billions of data points. It's been learning your reactions for months, maybe even years. It watches when your finger slows down on the screen, what you click on late at night when you're tired, what content makes you feel worried, curious, or even longing. And all the while, it understands more and more precisely how to keep you in this endless digital hallway. This is called personalization. How harmless that word sounds. Almost kind. As if the system is working for you. As if it knows you. As if it's trying to take care of you in an overwhelming world by filtering out the noise for you. But maybe it's worth asking the question differently. Who decided what you saw first this morning? Did you really choose that video, that news, that picture, that thought? Or was it chosen for you by a system whose only real goal is to keep you in front of the screen for as long as possible? Personalization doesn't actually make things better for you. Personalization makes more money for the platform. And even though sometimes these two things do meet, sometimes you really do get helpful, interesting, or inspiring content, deep down, the same logic is always at work. The amount of time you pay attention can be turned into money. And when it comes down to choosing between your peace of mind and the platform's profit, the system almost always leans towards profit. Not because it's evil, not because someone in a dark room is trying to trick you on purpose, but because that's how the system was built. That's how it works at its core. And this difference might seem small at first, almost unnoticeable. But its effects slowly creep into a person's thoughts, their nervous system, how they see things, and eventually, even how they see reality. Everyone has heard about algorithms by now. The word has almost lost its meaning because we repeat it so often. But we very rarely talk about what these systems actually do to us every day. Search engines, for example, are not neutral gateways to information. When you type in a question and the results appear before you, it's easy to think you're seeing the internet's objective answer, the best sources, the most relevant information. But what you see is actually the result of an invisible decision-making process. A constantly changing equation that includes the interests of advertisers, the platform's business goals, your previous searches, your location, your device, your online behavior, and hundreds of data points you might not even know exist. By the time the search results reach you, the system has already made many decisions for you. And the same thing happens on social media. The post you saw first this morning wasn't necessarily there because it was important, not because it was valuable to you, but because the algorithm calculated that it was more likely to get a reaction from you. Maybe outrage, envy, desire, or fear. Anything that creates activity. Because every reaction is another data point, another signal to the system that you're still paying attention, that you're still in it, that you're still valuable from this perspective. And the same logic works on video platforms too. Autoplay, for example, isn't just a simple convenience feature. It doesn't exist to make it easier for you to consume content. Autoplay is a psychologically precise mechanism designed to remove natural stopping points, so there's no moment of silence. When you could focus on yourself again. When you could decide if you really want to stay there. There's always another video coming, another recommendation, another story. And in the meantime, time disappears without us even noticing. Maybe that's why it's so hard to be alone with our own thoughts today. Because digital systems are built precisely to break that silence. To always have a new stimulus that pulls us back in. And at times like these, many people ask, but where's the problem? If the content is good, if it's entertaining, if it provides connection, then why does it matter what system chooses it for us? Because what we see every day isn't reality itself. It's a carefully edited, optimized version of reality. A version shaped not by truth or human well-being, but by the goal of maximizing attention. And when someone else's business interests start to edit how you see the world, sooner or later, you're no longer living entirely in your own reality. There's a term in the tech industry that, at first glance, seems totally harmless. It's called engagement optimization. In simple terms, you could say it's about making people more involved. It sounds like something from a boring chapter in a marketing textbook. Cold, technical, impersonal. But if we translate it into what it actually means, we suddenly get a completely different picture. Engagement optimization essentially means how to keep a person's attention for as long as possible. How can we make them return again and again to the same screen, the same app, the same platform, even when they're tired, even when they actually want to rest, even when deep down they feel it's time to put the phone down? And the system is constantly learning. Tech companies know exactly what kind of content triggers the strongest reactions in people. A series of studies has shown that intense emotions keep people on platforms much longer than calm, balanced content. Fear, anger, outrage, shock, indignation. These are the emotions that make it harder for people to leave. Harder to let go of the screen. Harder to find their way back to themselves. And that's no secret, because every reaction can be measured. Every second is data. The system sees which videos you scroll faster past, which comments you stop at longer, which headlines make you open another piece of content, then another, until you slowly lose all sense of time. And if they know all this and still build the systems this way, then the question is no longer just about technology, it's about ethics. Because it's quite possible that the anger you felt last night while reading a post wasn't entirely your own anger. It's quite possible that an algorithm amplified it in you. An algorithm that knows exactly that an angry person stays online longer, comments more, clicks more, consumes more. And this is the point where the digital world no longer simply becomes a tool, but an environment. An invisible psychological space that constantly shapes your emotions, your thoughts, your reactions, often without you even noticing it. Think about what this really means. Your view of the world, your opinions about people, your fears, your hopes, your political or social feelings, all of these are partly shaped by a system that wasn't made to help your mind, but to keep you looking at it for as long as possible. But there's an even deeper part to this. A part that's much quieter, much less obvious, yet it might be the most important part of all. This is the layer of data. Because every single thing you do online leaves a mark. Not just in a saying, but as actual pieces of information that are stored somewhere, organized and linked together. The system knows what you searched for last night. It knows how long you looked at a product page before you closed it. It knows if you usually open your phone in the early morning or after midnight. It knows where you are physically when you scroll, how fast you type, or when you are active, when you are unsure, when you are more likely to act on impulse. These pieces of information might seem unimportant on their own. One click doesn't say much, neither does one search. But when thousands of tiny data points come together, when different data sources are linked to each other, then something quite unsettling slowly starts to form. A digital profile about you. A profile that sometimes sees your behavior patterns much more accurately than you do yourself. And the strangest thing about all of this is that this system doesn't even need to know you perfectly. It's enough if it can statistically predict well enough what you will react to. The modern advertising industry has never really been about simply getting you to do something. The goal is much more complex than that. They don't want to tell you what to buy. Instead, they want to make sure you encounter the right message at the exact moment when you are most open to it. When you are tired. When you are lonely. When you are unsure of yourself. When the screen feels like an escape for a moment. And if a product, a video, or an offer pops up in front of you at that moment, it's very rarely just a coincidence. This is precision targeting. The cookies you accept without thinking, without reading them, the digital fingerprint of your browser that websites read almost without you noticing, the third-party tracking codes that follow you from page to page across the internet. They are all part of the same invisible infrastructure, an infrastructure that you don't see, but which constantly sees you. And this infrastructure is no longer just about what ads to show you. It goes much deeper than that. It influences what stories you come across, what you're afraid of, what you pay attention to, what you think is important, what you start to believe. Perhaps that's why it's so uncomfortable to talk about this, because most people deeply believe that they use the internet consciously, that they are in control, that they make their own decisions. And this feeling is completely human. We all like to think of ourselves as independent beings who make rational choices in an endless digital space. But psychology and behavioral science have been pointing to the same thing for decades. People's decisions are much less independent than we think. The environment, emotional state, fatigue, timing, all of these constantly shape our decisions without us even realizing it. And technological platforms know this exactly. That's why the feed never ends. Not for technical reasons, but because endless scrolling is psychologically more effective. If there's no natural stopping point, it's much harder for people to stop. It's much easier to lose another 20 minutes than an hour than a whole evening. That's why notifications arrive exactly when you're most likely to react to them. That's why that little red number lights up in the corner of the app. That's why you feel a tiny bit of tension inside when you see it. Because these systems aren't just tools we use. They are carefully designed psychological mechanisms that tap into the deepest reflexes of the human nervous system. The author of the book, Hooked, spent years teaching Silicon Valley companies how to create digital products that become habits in people's lives. And interestingly, they were very careful with their words. They didn't call these addictive products. Instead, they called them habit-forming products. At first glance, the difference seems small, almost just a linguistic detail, but its impact is not small at all. Because if a system is intentionally built to exploit human psychological weaknesses, loneliness, boredom, uncertainty, impulsivity, just to keep you in front of the screen for one more minute, then the decision you make in that state is no longer the same decision you would make in a quiet, manipulation-free moment. There's a saying that's been repeated again and again as one of the most well-known truths of the internet age. We've heard it so many times that it's almost lost its power. If the product is free, you are the product. And it's true. But the reality is even deeper than that. Because it's not just your attention that has become a product, not just your time, but your emotions, your reactions, your habits, your decision patterns, your uncertainties, and soon, your very identity has turned into data points in a system that constantly analyzes, categorizes, and optimizes. The digital world doesn't just use you, it shapes you, slowly, almost invisibly. Not like in a movie, where everything changes in one dramatic moment, but like water shaping a stone, unnoticed, day by day, with a single click, a single scroll. In just another evening when you only opened your phone for 5 minutes, and in the end, 2 hours passed without you even remembering what you saw. Maybe that's why it's so hard to notice, because the change isn't loud, it's constant. And the question isn't whether it will happen. The question is when you will notice it. Because there's a part of this story that we talk about much less often. A twist that isn't as dramatic as the problem itself, yet it might be the only real way out of it. The system is not fate. It's not some unchangeable, all-powerful machine that you can't fight against. The digital world is made by people. People designed it, people built it, people run it. And the same thing is true for all systems. What people created, people's relationship to it can also change. Maybe this is the first real step. Awareness. Not because awareness itself solves the problem, but because the whole system is built on you acting automatically. On you clicking out of habit, scrolling by reflex, accepting everything put in front of you without thinking. And the moment you break that process, when you stop for just 1 second and ask yourself why you're seeing this, why you clicked here, why you're still here, something already changes. Because you're no longer operating completely on autopilot. And beyond that, there are very specific steps you can take. Small decisions that, by themselves, might not change the internet, but they give back something that the system has slowly taken away. Your attention, your own decision-making space, turning off notifications, consciously reviewing and deleting apps, recognizing which platforms make you feel emptier, more tired, or more restless. Changing your search habits. Deliberately using private browsing. These might seem like small things at first, but every such step is a kind of mental boundary. A quiet message to the system that you don't want to operate completely at its mercy. And there's another layer that's talked about much less, but it might be one of the most important. The network layer. Most people use the internet without ever really thinking about what happens to their data at the level where online traffic actually moves. But when you connect to a public Wi-Fi network in a coffee shop, an airport, or a hotel, your data travels through real infrastructure. Your service provider sees a significant part of your traffic. The network you're communicating through is technically able to observe some of your activities. And this isn't paranoia. It's how the internet works. Real network protection, the reliable encryption that a VPN can provide, isn't about hiding something. It's more about having a basic boundary between you and those who have no business knowing what you do online. Digital self-defense isn't a luxury. It's a basic skill in a world where invisible data flow has become one of the fundamental layers of modern life. If you're serious about moving around the digital space based on your own choices and not completely at the mercy of what the system automatically assigns you, then you need tools that give you back some control. NordVPN is one of the most well-known and reliable solutions for this. It's easy to use and helps ensure that your online activity isn't easily visible to parties who really have no business seeing it. You can find the link in the description. And this isn't about trying to hide something. It's about wanting to get back that feeling of moving through the digital world based on your own decisions, rather than according to the logic of completely invisible systems. But the real question isn't actually what tool you use. It's when you first say to yourself, enough. Enough of the automatic scrolling, enough of feeling like hours have disappeared from your life by evening without you truly being present in them. Enough of your emotions, attention, and reactions slowly serving the profit of other systems without you consciously choosing it. It means that the system you're in no longer completely controls you without you even realizing it. It means you can spot when you're being manipulated. You can stop. You can take back your attention. They say the internet is free. And in some ways, it really is. Never before in human history has so much information been available. But maybe the most important question isn't what you can see. It's what you can't. What does the algorithm never show you? What parts of reality stay hidden because the system calculated they wouldn't keep you hooked long enough? What ideas do you never encounter because they don't generate enough reactions, enough clicks, enough profit? Perhaps this is the biggest illusion of the free internet. Not that someone openly lied to us, but that while we felt free, there was always an invisible control at work. A system that quietly guided our attention, our decisions, our perception of reality. And the first step is always the same: noticing. Being aware doesn't solve everything on its own, but every real change starts when you finally see what was invisible before. Because digital freedom isn't a place you arrive at once, it's an ongoing practice. Something you have to choose again and again every time you pause for a moment and ask yourself, was this really my decision, or did someone else decide for me and just make me believe I chose it? And perhaps, at the moment you honestly ask yourself this question, you are no longer where you once were. If you'd like to continue this series, in the next part, we'll talk about digital invisibility. About why, in the age of online presence, being able to control your own digital footprints has become one of the most important skills. And also, why digital self-defense is not paranoia, but a basic human need in a world where data has become more valuable than ever. Thank you for joining me. See you in the next video.